Watching TV has changed over time. Streaming has become the new norm. That's why Golden State Media Concepts television podcast dives headfirst to the world of cord cutting. Want to be on the loop of what's hot in Netflix? Or if it's not a preference, what about original shows in Hulu? We've got you covered. Join us as we fill in the blank and talk about movies to stream and what show you should be binging. This is the Golden State Media Concepts television podcast.
Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC TV show podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network Group. I'm your host, Priscilla Welch. Happy Halloween! I hope this weekend is full of laughs, spooky stories, candy, and amazing memories. Today is finally the episode I have been waiting to do all month with all of you. Today, we will start the show off with Penny Dreadful, and stay tuned because later in the show, I will reveal announcements and updates on the last season of Sabrina the Teenage Witch. I know. Unfortunately, that show now is finally going to end. I really wish they would have continued with that show, but we could talk about that more later as to why it's ending and what exactly is going on. And as we all know, like many people do many different things during Halloween. So, for example, you may do things like trick-or-treating. However, with the pandemic, I'm sure people are going to come up with many different ways as to how they can do it safely. I mean, there's also trunk or treat where you can actually like give out candy like from your cars, your trunks. And then we have things like some people, of course, are throwing parties. Some people are probably just staying home and watching horror movies or just Halloween Disney movies, or maybe a TV show that you want to catch up on, or shows that are relatable to Halloween that you maybe want to start, which is why I'm here. And that is why I'm here to give you a list of TV shows that I highly, highly recommend. A lot of these shows I watched over the past like 4 to 5 years or so. And of course, Stranger Things will be coming up as well. Yes, I just let out that surprise because I'm so excited for this episode. And of course, many of you are probably just going to stay home and just dress up, maybe even do some TikTok videos or post somewhere on social media with your costumes. So, let's get into it. First of all, my intake on Penny Dreadful, I actually came across the show because I'm always looking for something new to watch every few months or every year. And I came across Penny Dreadful because Eva Green is one of the lead actresses on the show. Well, she's basically one of the main characters. And what was interesting, what caught my eye, like, you know how when you look at a book and you read, like, the info on the back of the book, I actually was really surprised at the different characters that came alive on this show. In regards to Dorian Gray, we have, of course, Frankenstein, but a lot of people don't know, like, Frankenstein is Frankenstein, the creator. And then we have, of course, Frankenstein's monster, which everyone calls Frankenstein, but he is not Frankenstein. He's actually the creator of Frankenstein. And they go into a lot of detail, especially with Frankenstein's story about, like, even self. He created more than one person, and he even created a wife for his monster. And another thing I would like to discuss is Eva Green's character, which is very unusual, especially the way that the show ended entirely. It actually used to come on Showtime. And again, like I said, Eva Green is a phenomenal actress. I just love the work that she does. She always plays some type of, not really, like kind of like a dark, mystery, dramatic type of like movie or show. And what's interesting about her is her eyes. I don't know why, but like her eyes are so huge, but it's pretty. Like it really like as an actress, she uses that to her advantage. The makeup that they put on her, especially for this particular show, was to bring out her eyes. She has beautiful eyes. I know I'm ranting on her eyes, but it's the truth. Then of course we have like the normal tale of who would the werewolf man be and stuff like that. So that's also a character in the show. And the way, again, like the show starts, it's like these unusual come-to-life story characters who can actually solve different issues, or you kind of see where their story goes as far as not just, oh, well, this is Halloween and this is Frankenstein's wife. She always gets like a small part, but for the first time, you start to see a different side to it. Like, hey, what if Frankenstein, when he created the husband and the wife, what if the wife never wanted to be with Frankenstein? What if she just wanted her own life? What if she felt like her life was taken away from her? And you really see that a lot in the show, and it grows on you. And so the characters, like the werewolf man and everything, like for example, his character is not necessarily the werewolf man, but his character does turn into a werewolf. And what was interesting was how the way they picked him up, he was an American on the show, and he literally was good at like gunfighting. So it was like back in those days when like your gun was kind of like a revolver, where you had to keep on using like say your right hand to hit the back piece of the gun, whereas the left hand was holding it. So it was like one of those like Texas cowboy type of guns. It was interesting because he eventually started to learn how to solve crime as well with his fellow characters, and you start noticing that he has like these certain traits to pick up on things, especially like sense, and he's good at tracking. And then we come to find out, we see eventually that he's actually half werewolf. So it was pretty cool how they actually put his storyline together as well, because he was one of the first ones to ever enter the show that Eva Green's character and her, kind of like her boss basically, because she grew up with him because she grew up with him and his daughter, but I'll get more into the characters a little later. And when they found him, it was like the three of them working together to find, I believe, the boss's daughter. And come to find out, I think she was turned into like a zombie or a vampire, and it was kind of like too late for her. And this was Eva Green's character's childhood friend, as far as I can remember. But as of right now, if you really do want to watch the show, I believe it's still on Showtime, but you can actually watch it on Netflix if you don't have that. And now we're going to get into a little bit more detail on the show. So, again, as you can see, I really love this show. I wouldn't mind going back and, like, restarting it all over again. And again, it's about the tales of Frankenstein's monsters, Dorian Gray. Dorian Gray is a character, and you've probably heard about this depending on what books you read and stuff you've watched. But Dorian Gray is an immortal because he is actually a man that was born centuries ago, and he was able to keep his soul captured in a painting of himself in a huge mansion. And over the centuries, he's always known as to stay young. But if you see him, how he really looks in real life, like, he probably looks like a demon from hell. And I said his actual soul, like his actual living being, is captured within his painting. So in order for you to actually kill him and get rid of this painting, you would actually have to destroy it. And he's one of those womanizer type of characters, but at the same time, it's like he is low-key evil. So it's very interesting. He just wants to do what he wants. And of course, we have many vampires and werewolves, of course. Like, it's literally all the monsters all in one show. Not really in nitty-gritty detail, like, say, if there was goblins or gremlins or something extra like that, or unicorns, for God's sakes. But it was literally, like, those typical monster cliche mashups that you will get on this TV show. And it has a bit of a 19th century cliche as well. So if you were a fan of like the early 19th century with the costuming and the makeup and the storyline, the way women and men dressed and how they acted in society, well, this is definitely the show for you. So Penny Dreadful is an American horror drama television series created for Showtime and Sky. It was actually created by John Logan. He is also an executive producer along with Sam Mendes. It was actually originally pitched to like the US and the UK channels, and eventually it landed on Showtime with Sky Atlantic as, of course, the co-producer. So it actually was premiered at the South by the Southwest Film Festival on March 9th, and it began airing on television actually on April 28, 2014, on Showtime On Demand. So the series premiere, however, in the US was May 11, 2014, and in the UK was May 20th, 2014. So the season finale for like the third season was back in like the 2016, June 19, 2016. And again, the series creator John Logan announced that Penny Dreadful had ended as a main story and it reached its conclusion. I completely disagree with that because I felt like the show could have did a lot more. And I don't like what they did with Eva Green's character. After a while, I felt like her character wasn't going anywhere because all the other characters, especially from the first season, they were able to actually like grow as a character, and her character kind of was just falling more and more into the darkness. So it was pretty interesting how they kept up with that, but at the same time, it was like she was like one of the only ones that really didn't get like a really deserving ending, in my opinion, you know. And it kind of sucked because after a while too, a lot of the characters kind of left her alone, and it was kind of just her to kind of like fend for herself. So I don't like how they did that, and I wish they could have ended it where she kind of like won in the end and ended stronger. But again, that's just my opinion. And again, it's a type of 19th century British fiction publication, and it has such sensational and exceptional like subjects that you can even talk about, even if it's not related to anything that's like horror or Halloween or Gothic or Victorian or 19th century style. A lot of the different types of society you can see, you know, happening. And apparently there was a spin-off series that premiered, Penny Dreadful City of Angels. Now, when this happened, I actually watched the first episode because, of course, it's a completely different cast and it's a completely different type of dark fantasy. But it still kind of follows like the same aspect of things, but it's just like from a different culture's perspective, more like Latino and Hispanic, mixed in also with a lot of like racism between like Hispanics and the whites. And what happens is it's not the same for me, you know. And I want to give the show another chance, however, but I just don't think, maybe it's trending, maybe it's not. I don't hear anyone talking about it, but in my opinion, like after watching the first episode, it was so hard for me to continue on to the second episode. But that's just my opinion. I definitely do want to go back and watch the show because it's more of a, to me, it just doesn't fit for that type of show with the characters and everything like that, but it should be more to come. So it's actually starring Reeve Carney, Timothy Dalton, Eva Green, like I mentioned before. Timothy Dalton is a famous actor. I mean, I remember when I first watched him way back when he did Cleopatra, like when he was like way older. He's been acting for years. So Timothy Dalton, if you know, like he played also like James Bond. He played Doctor Who. He played in Doctor Who as well. But his character is basically the boss I was talking about earlier. That's for Eva Green's character. And then Reeve Carney, he actually plays Dorian Gray. And then we have Billie Piper. Billie Piper actually played Frankenstein's wife. But she didn't even like to be called that, you know. So then we have Harry John Newman Treadway. And he actually plays Mr. Frankenstein, the one and only. And Joshua Hartnett, he actually played the werewolf. And then we had just some other like supporting characters: Helen McCrory, Simone Russell, Beale, Patty Lupone, and Wes Studi. And again, like the theme music was by Abel Koronowski, Tom Kitt, and it was like the series finale as well for that. Again, it's 3 seasons. The country of origin, so it would be United States and the UK, but it's more of a British show. These are mainly British actors here. The total number of episodes, 27, so you can actually binge watch this in a heartbeat. The cinematography was very interesting as well for the entire show. Like I said, it's that dark, gory feeling. It's like perfect for Halloween. And it's a lot of interesting Victorian, like, or 19th century costumes that you can do for Halloween, so that's another idea. And again, the original release was May 11, 2014 to June 19, 2016. And I know, like if you look it up online, they'll say related shows would be, like I said, the spin-off series to that. But right now, I just don't like where they're going with it. It just doesn't make sense to me. So, yeah, Penny Dreadful, y'all. I mean, the ratings were amazing. On Rotten Tomatoes, it's 80%. It has 61 reviews, at least for the first season. The second season is the best for ratings. It's 100% actually on Rotten Tomatoes, 20 reviews. And then the third season was 93%, 15 reviews for the third. So again, like I said, and some awards that they actually won, which I would like to announce, is Critics' Choice Television Awards for Most Exciting New Series. They won BAFTA Television Craft Awards. They won the Canadian Cinema Editors Awards. They actually got third place because of Best TV Supporting Actress. Billie Piper won that. And then for Best TV Actress, Eva Green, it was for the IGN Awards. Like I said, phenomenal actress. Then we have the Satellite Awards. They won both times for that, for Best Supporting Actor, Series, Miniseries, or Television Film, and Best Television Series Genre. And they also won the Fangoria Chainsaw Awards, Irish Film and Television Awards. They won Canadian Cinema Editor Awards again, Edgar Awards, Golden Reel Award, and yeah, that's pretty much all the awards that they won. And it's cool because there's like comics to it. So in 2015, it's actually called Titan Books, announced the comic book series based on Penny Dreadful, written by co-executive producer Chris King and writers Christy Wilson, Cairns, and Andrew Hinderaker. And then the first issue was actually released on May 11, 2016. In October 2016, Showtime announced that a new series will be released in 2017. So it's set 6 months after the finale of the TV series, which is pretty interesting. And the project will be written by King, illustrated by Jesus Hervas, and published by Titan Books. So there you have it, folks. Again, you can watch all 3 seasons of Penny Dreadful right now on Netflix, so go ahead and do that, and it will be a perfect start to your Halloween night. Some things to know and keep in mind is you can't skip around with this show. It's one of those TV shows where you have to start from literally the beginning. And like I said, if you're a type of person that loves Victorian, vampiric, lycanthropic, so in other words, werewolves, anything that's like a cult or Frankenstein, like this is like the show for you. And it really goes in depth, and it's interesting because there's like always a backstory to like everybody's character, and they really, really grow on this show. So go ahead and watch that. Coming up after the break, I'm going to discuss the wonderful trending TV show on Netflix that all you kids will enjoy, Stranger Things. You don't want to go anywhere.
Want to know the latest and hottest music hitting the airwaves? Don't be left out. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Music Podcast. Keith keeps you on the loop with everything you need to know from pop, rock, hip-hop, and the top 40. And we'll throw in news of your favorite artists, concert and tour dates, and so much more. Listen no further, because this is the gold standard in music podcast.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. If you're now tuning in, we just finished discussing the wonderful TV show Penny Dreadful, so thank you so much for tuning in. Again, happy Halloween. So now I would like to get into the discussion of Stranger Things. Yes, you heard it here, folks. I love the show. So when the show first actually premiered, I believe a couple years ago on Netflix, it was like one of those TV shows that were like #1 trending on Netflix in the world or in the United States. And the thing with Stranger Things, what's different about it is, just to introduce you to the show, it's basically set in like the 80s. And the timeline of it is very interesting because we start to see, you know, the different costumes of like brought to life of how kids would actually dress in the 80s, how kids used to use walkie-talkies. There's certain board games that they played that, for example, if they were in the year 2020, they would probably play those similar type of games that had to do with like space or aliens or anything abnormal, probably on an Xbox or a PlayStation or a Nintendo Switch, whatever it is. And or even like the, you know, brand new game that has been going crazy and mind-blowing is Among Us. So with this TV show, I love how there's a lot of diversity among the show, and they're not afraid to add some like certain language there, or to show you how these kids are starting to grow up and no longer kids, because it's kind of like one of those shows that's coming of age, which I love those type of shows, because I feel like that's like everyone's difficult time when they have to transition, is they're coming of age. Like you're going through so many stages with like puberty, you're going through so many things with crushes and maybe acne, like there's so many different things. And again, you will start like working, So, like, some of the kids, for example, have older siblings that are also, like, characters on the show. And not older siblings in, like, real life, but, of course, other actresses and actors that are on the show. And it's interesting because we see, like, okay, well, they're much older to them, but at the same time, they're kind of, like, all, like, a big group that have to handle all these different things that keep happening. And some of the parents are also involved and actually have a clue of what's going on, and then while other parents don't. And in real life, and honestly, like, if the situations happen like that where you meet a very dimensional identity that you can't identify in this world, but of course our researchers and scientists who love science so much and they'll do anything for science to get answers will try to mess with it. And it's like one of those situations where if it's something unknown, do not mess with it, because once it now enters our world and we realize we are not ready for any of that coming into our world, or any type of aliens or things scientific that we just don't understand, who knows, possibly magic, like, who could tell you? But it's, like I said, this show is all over the place. I mean, we have, like, deaths that, you know, we have superpowers. Like I said, we have deaths that basically happened, and you kind of just, like, not really, you're attached to the characters, and you're just like, damn, like, that was a perfect way to go out, though, but in the same time, it's like, damn, they really had to kill him off the show or her off the show. And I'm talking even about the first season and even the recent season. Because it could be a situation where, for example, one of the characters was actually best friends with one of the older siblings, and she wasn't really looked at. Like, no one paid attention to her. She was a nerd. She was a big girl. But, you know, she died unexpectedly, and it was unfair, because she did not see it coming. And recently, in another season, one of the characters actually was killed off. I mean, he was one of those douchebags, good-looking type of guys, but then, at least that's how the show is portraying him. But then he finally, even after everything, he still goes ahead and, like, does a heroic thing. And that's where I'm going to leave it. I'm not going to give any spoilers, but I was like, oh my gosh, now I love him, you know. And then the show has a way of, like, making you hate someone and love someone, and then doing both at the same time, and then doing it never again. Like, it's just a roller coaster, and that's how you know it's a really good show, because you really want more and more and more and more and more. And I get so upset because I literally binge watch the show every time in one night or at least 2 days, and then I have nothing else to watch, because now I want more of that show, and that show is no longer, there's no episodes, there's nothing. And it's probably like about 10 episodes or so, but we'll get into that more. Just one thing I do want to point out, though, is, you know, when the show first started off, Millie Bobby Brown, of course, is the main character of the TV show. And recently they just added on, like, another female lead. I mean, they had other supporting roles for other females that were already on the show, but we have, like, another female lead that's part of, like, the group of, like, 5 to 6 kids. And what's interesting, Millie Bobby Brown, like, and the other kids, like, they all see each other as family, and they're all talented, like, actors, singers, and models, and whatever it is. And Millie Bobby Brown, she actually gets paid more than the other co-stars. I actually saw a YouTube video recently of how things have drifted since the previous season, because she was actually able to get bigger checks than the rest of the young men that actually started off on the show in the first season. So that was interesting. Also, like I said, like, they're English, and she's very funny. Recently, she also just did another film called Sherlock Holmes, the new one. So, and like I said, it's really, like, set back in the day. It's really set back in the 80s. So they're not going to have a lot of the advanced technology we would have if we have an unidentified entity that we just don't understand, or these weird powers we don't understand, but one thing we can relate to is the fact that, like, we always hear these things about aliens and being experimented on, and, you know, people that were experimented on, or some type of, like, sick thing where, like, the mother gets money from, like, the government to have her child experimented on. And that's kind of like what's happening with the main character that Millie Bobby Brown plays. So again, it's an American sci-fi horror streaming television, and it was actually created by the Duffer Brothers, and they released it originally on Netflix. They're actually twins, and they actually serve as showrunners and are executive producers, along with Sean Levy and Dan Cohen. And like I said, it was a few years ago when the show premiered, but actually it's been about 4 years. So July 15, 2016 was actually the air date, and it's in a town called Hawkins, Indiana, but it's actually actually a fictional town. And again, it's all about these investigations of like disappearances that are happening with a lot of these kids, a lot of supernatural elements to it. And Millie Bobby Brown's character, she actually has psychokinetic abilities, and we start to see her powers develop as the show grows further and further. So again, it was created by them. We also have starring Winona Ryder, David Harbour, Finn Wolfhard, Millie Bobby Brown, Gaten Matarazzo, Caleb McLaughlin, Natalia Dyer, Charlie Heaton, Kira Buono, Matthew Modine, Noah Schnapp, Shady Sink, Joe Carey, Dacre Montgomery, Sean Astin, Paul Reiser, Maya Hawke, Priya Ferguson, Brett Gelman. So the country of origin, of course, is the United States, and the number of episodes they have right now is 25. But I'm here to tell you there's actually going to be a season 4, so that will be fun to watch. The cinematography as well is something that does not happen a lot. The art, like, you can really see it as a comic book coming to life, and it's just amazing because, like, these are kids we're talking about. At least from the first season. Now they're kind of like going into that teenage transition. But these are kids that are literally really smart. They have exactly what's going on, and they have to inform everybody else and pick up on everything what's going on in their town. And come to find out, it seems like the heart of everything has to do with Russia. At least that's what we start to see when the show develops a little bit more from the first season. And the production company is actually 21 Laps Entertainment. And the distributor, like I mentioned earlier, is Netflix streaming services. So that's a little bit about that. So Winona Ryder actually plays Joyce Byers. She's actually the mother of Will and Jonathan Byers. Those are the two brothers, like I mentioned earlier. Some of the kids have like older siblings. And then we have David Harbour as Jim Harper. He's actually the chief of Hawkins Police Department. He's a bit of a drunk, though. But he actually, had a daughter before. And what happened is Eleven, who Millie Bobby Brown plays, her character kind of came in and he kind of adopted her. So that was like his daughter now. And then we have Finn Wolfhard as Mike Wheeler. That's the middle child of Karen Ted Wheeler, brother of Nancy and Holly. And he's also another one of the 3 friends of Will Byers. Because with Will, it was kind of like when all these things started happening to him, all his friends were also, sucked in on that as well. And then we have, again, Gaten Matarazzo, who plays Dustin Henderson. And he's actually my favorite character. He's so funny. He has a lisp, and he is a very, cute and funny character. It's just hilarious, but I actually love his character most because he's pretty smart, kind of figures things out pretty quickly, actually, compared to, the other friends. Of course, everyone chips in whenever there's a situation on the show, but he kind of gets it. So that's just a little bit about them. We also have Caleb McLaughlin. He plays Lucas Sinclair. He's another one of the friends as well. He actually in the beginning didn't really like Eleven, and I don't know if it's because she was a girl or what it was, but I really love his character. The actor alone, Caleb McLaughlin is very, very talented, a young boy of color, and he is just amazing. I love him. He actually is supposed to be coming out with a new film with Idris Elba. Then we have Natalia Dyer as Nancy Wheeler, and like I said, another sibling again, and she's the older sister of Mike and Holly. We have Charlie Heaton as Jonathan Byers. Then we have Cara Buono as Karen Wheeler. We have Matthew Modine as Martin Brenner. Noah Schnapp as Will Byers. Shady Sink as Max Mayfield. She's actually one of the recent kids that actually just joined their group in season 2. So that was very interesting to see. And she's also the younger stepsister for Billy. And Billy is one of the characters I said he had a very heroic ending, even though he was a douchebag in the beginning. So that's just a little bit of some of the main cast. A little bit about season 4. So right now there's a lot of delays with the show because by now we would have all seen season 4. But of course the pandemic held everything up. And there was also other delays to play in. But so far, they seem like they will probably be a season 4 not until July 2021, which is very pushed back, because that's literally the summer of next year, and we didn't even reach winter of this year yet. So we did, but the ending of the year, because the year, and you know where I'm going with this. So production, of course, was put on hold. And it actually initially began all the way in February, but like I said, everything had to be put on hold because of COVID-19. And one of the cool things that on the show it's called the Upside Down, which is, like I said, another dimension of their world. So everything is the complete opposite of what goes on in this, like, very unknown entity. But Stranger Things season 4, they are hyping it up. It's supposed to be huge. We'll see how it goes. The scripts are supposed to be more phenomenal than the last 3 seasons, so this should be interesting. A lot of people have been, like, the cast members have been tweeting about it, like, pictures of, like, the entire script. And I would want this season to actually be more than the other 3 seasons, because of the fact that they had now extra time to make those changes, to, do all these different things in the show because of COVID-19. So I really, really can't wait. And we also are going to see a lot of Russia, I believe. So we're going to see probably a little bit of the origins of what's going on from this entire story. So, yeah, there's that. Stranger Things. Watch all 3 seasons on Netflix. Again, it's perfect to watch for Halloween this weekend. So go ahead and do that. So thank you so much. That right after the break, we will be discussing another TV show that would be perfect for Halloween or just in general, Riverdale. You don't want to miss it.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back from the break, everyone. Again, it's your girl, Pri, and again, I have another one for you. So, like I said, we're halfway through the show now, and we're now getting into the TV show called Riverdale. And again, this is another perfect TV show that you can watch definitely for Halloween weekend. So, actually, with Riverdale, I kind of hate it now. In on honesty, before I get into it a little further. And again, if you're now tuning in, we just finished discussing the TV show on Netflix called Stranger Things. So definitely go and watch that. 3 seasons. Let's do it. Now with Riverdale, in the beginning, I really, really loved this show. Don't get me wrong. Especially because of Cole Sprouse. I've been watching him since he was a little kid. I mean, all the way down from certain movies that he did. But, of course, I grew up watching him and his twin brother, Dylan Sprouse, on Sweet Life on Deck, Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. Of course, Sweet Life of Zack and Cody came before Sweet Life on Deck, and both of the shows are basically connected. And it follows them literally from when they were, like, maybe 11, 12 years old to their high school years when they're getting ready to go to college. And what is interesting is, with Riverdale, first of all, Cole Sprouse here is black. Usually his hair was always a dirty blonde or a blonde type of hair. So that was interesting because I felt like he really took this character seriously and he wanted to show and prove like he's no longer a child actor. At least that's what I got from him. Because like I said, the last time I ever saw him do anything was probably Sweet Life on Deck. And it's like they kind of disappeared because they both kind of went to school. They went to college like right after, like in real life and not the TV show. And they both kind of got serious with things. So they got their education. But Dylan kind of just didn't want to do acting anymore. And Cole, however, continued to do that. I believe he did like a few like Broadway type musicals over the years. But then he finally got back, and he got back on this TV show. So that's kind of like when I started back watching him again. Now, his character, however, reaches a certain point on the season, and it pisses me off so much. But hey, this is where showbiz and TV shows go. However, with Riverdale, it's a lot of plot, a lot of storylines. So basically, it's one of those TV shows where every season, there's always a new enemy. But sometimes, like a couple of like the last seasons, one of the enemies were kind of focused so much on their revenge that it kind of connected all the seasons together, even from the first season when they found out that one of the characters, the Blossoms, one of their sons had actually passed away, and he was the twin brother to Cheryl Blossom. And she's like the queen of Riverdale High, and she has bright hair. She's a cheerleader, and she basically gets what she wants. I actually love her character a lot. She has a lot of confidence, it was interesting to see, exactly where her parents' mindset were, because they had a lot to play in when it came to the show altogether. And of course, they're always kind of solving the mysteries, but like I said, it's interesting to see like what these kids do and what young adults or just people my age do, or people in high school or college, and how especially like your mental health plays a lot into this TV show. There's a lot of the reason why it's so like on the edge of your seat type of thing for like a teen drama is because it messes with your psychological thinking. And we're talking about from serial killers to cult to working with secret agents in the government to just things happening like with certain groups like hazing. Like there's so many different things that in the show they don't talk about a lot on a regular conversation, at least like in public, because it's one of those conversations where it's just like you kind of want to talk about it behind closed doors, but if you do talk about it in public, it might be like at work with your coworkers, because you're like, oh well, did you hear about this in the news? It's one of those situations, but it's happening every single time you watch this show and every episode that you see. And it's one of those situations as well where these like teens, they don't depend on their parents too much. They kind of try to take things in their own hands, and that's what gets them in trouble in the first place, because it's like, but then in some situations for some of them, we have Betty, we have Veronica, we have Archie, and then we have Jughead. Now, I was actually a big fan of Archie comics, and that is the reason why when I found out that Riverdale was actually becoming a live action TV show, I was just like, yes, because it's that teen drama like Nancy Drew, and if you remember the comics, like they also had, these singers, Josie and the Pussycat Dolls, and they were actually on the Riverdale show too, so I'm glad that they included like all the main characters pretty much. I don't remember any of them like really missing from the TV show, but it was interesting to see. And even like people like Veronica's parents, like they changed like the parents' perspective of like, because in the comics, of course, you didn't really focus too much on the parents. It was more, figuring out what the young sleuths were doing. And if you know what the word sleuths mean, you know exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to teens becoming like detectives. You would call them sleuths. And what I find interesting is like, for example, with Veronica's parents, you can't really depend on them because they are either caught up in some type of criminal activity, and yet somehow they have a lot of power and a lot of money to go along with that. And again, like in her situation, then it's kind of like she has to take matters into her own hands and use her common sense and use her brain. But what's interesting is she has the same or similar mindset to what her parents have, even though at the same time she's trying so hard not to be like them. And with Archie's situation, he actually is just dealing with like divorced parents who are they kind of like get along, but at the same time they have to live in separate houses or separate cities or states altogether. And his mom ended up becoming a lawyer, and his father ended up like staying in that same Riverdale town, but like owning the business. But he's one of those people who will stand up for himself, stand up for his business, but he was known for being there for the community, and he was respected a lot, even from people that you didn't expect to respect him. And then, of course, you see the difference where someone who lives on the south side of the tracks versus the north side of the tracks, and Jughead comes from the south side of the tracks. And Jughead and Archie are literally best friends. And it's interesting because now Betty's character actually, had a crush on Archie. And I can't remember how the comics exactly go. I would have to Google it, or you, the audience, could Google it, but I know that Archie and Betty did end up together in the comics, but they kind of switched it up a bit in the TV show, because it's like Archie and Betty were like kind of like meant to be, but apparently, like I said, they changed the characters so much and they make them more darker, and I love it. But as the show progressed, it was kind of like, where is this show going? And with Jughead, like his family was like from the riots outside. It was like gang related, but at the same time it was kind of like they were like policing themselves. And with Betty ends up with Jughead, and then Archie ends up with Veronica. And even though like Veronica and like, for example, Archie's relationship are on and off, like Jughead and Betty actually stayed together for most of the time. So as I said, and rest in peace, honestly, to Archie's father. His last name was Perry. They actually did like a whole tribute when like the recent season, like the new season had started. And what I found interesting was how they were like, you know, and what I found interesting was how, you know, they did this whole episode and contributed it to him. And it was so emotional. Like, if you watched it, and if you've like been watching the show, you can understand. Really couldn't hold back the tears on that episode. So the cast members were KJ Apa, and he plays, of course, Archie. He's actually a New Zealand actor, singer, and musician. Lily Reinhart plays Betty. Then we have Camila Mendez, and she plays Veronica. Cole Sprouse, of course, he plays Jughead. Marisol Nichols, she actually plays Veronica's mother. Madeline Petz, she is Shira Blossom. Ashley Murray, she actually plays Josie, and she's the leader of Josie and the Pussycat Dolls. Then we have Madchen Amick, she actually plays Betty's mom. And Luke Perry, there we go, that's the last name. So his name is Coy Luther Perry III, and he was an American actor. We all know him from Beverly Hills, 90210, and like I said, he played Fred Andrews on the CW series. He played Archie's father. So it was a very emotional episode when he actually died, like in the middle of like them like, you know, broadcasting still for that season. We have Mark Andrew Consuelas, and he actually plays Veronica's father. We have Casey Cott. He is known for his role. He hasn't done anything really before Riverdale, but he plays Kevin on the show, and he was like childhood friends or like best friends with like Betty at a certain point in time. Then we have Skeet Ulrich. I actually love him. He is hilarious. He actually plays the father of Jughead. And we have Charles Melton. He actually plays a football star named Reggie, and he of course plays with Archie, or did, and he sometimes dates Veronica's character throughout the show. And of course we have the beautiful Vanessa Morgan, and she plays actually Cheryl Blossom's girlfriend, but she comes from the other side of the tracks of like with Jughead. But she shows and proves that, like, you know, just because we come from different sides or two different worlds, or that's how it feels, it doesn't mean I'm not as smart as you. It doesn't mean I want the same things, you know? And finally, we have Aaron Westbrook. So those are the characters for the cast for those the TV show. And so everything with the camera, which is pretty cool about this show, is actually a single camera setup. And I think that's amazing because when you watch the show, it doesn't feel like that at all. It feels like they are still getting it from, like, more than one angle, but just the way that they filmed it, it's just very interesting. And like I said, it's like from Archie Comics, but also CBS Television Studios and Warner Brothers and Berlanti Productions also have a hand in it when it comes to production. And you can originally watch this on the CW app. And what I like is they actually do crossovers with the show with Katie Keene and Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, which I will get into later in the show. And the original release date for the show was actually January 26, 2017. So there you have it, folks. And like I said, right now it's number 4 seasons, 76 episodes in all. They're actually going to be filming season 5 soon, but like I said, a lot of these things have been pushed back, so it's probably not going to happen until 2021. Alright, so coming up after the break, we're finally going to get into the chilling adventures of Sabrina, the Teenage Witch. And no, I'm not talking about the Sabrina Teenage Witch from years back, but don't go anywhere.
Want to find out what movies to go see? Then check out the GSMC Movie Podcast. It's your ticket to the latest movies, whether it's a new blockbuster event, romantic, comedy, or action flick. This show has got it all covered. They talk some what to go see now, don't bother, what's hot on Netflix, and everything in between. That's gsmcpodcast.com/movie-podcast. When it's all about the movies, it has to be this new show. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
everyone, and thank you so much for sticking with me this whole hour. Again, happy Halloween. I'm so glad you all can make it. And now we're going to get into the TV show called Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. So, as we all know, there actually was Sabrina the Teenage Witch a few years back. I forgot what production company did it, but it was a popular TV show, I believe, like in the mid-2000s. But when Chilling Adventures of Sabrina actually came out, everyone realized that there were more to the Archie comics, which goes back to what we were discussing before, which is a TV show called Riverdale. So, what we see, though, is a different side to Sabrina the Teenage Witch, in my opinion, because, like I said, when the show first aired out, I thought it was just, like, maybe a spin-off series, until I realized they were actually doing it based off the comics. So, it's pretty more horrific and supernatural. It's not as anywhere, like, comedic-like how Sabrina the Teenage Witch was. And I feel like Sabrina the Teenage Witch was actually a bit more kiddie compared to Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. Because you gotta remember, we're dealing with witches, we're dealing with satanic cults, we're dealing with covens, so it's more in-depth on this type of show. And again, this is another show that was on the CW. So, Sabrina Teenage Witch, again, it was American supernatural horror, and this was actually developed by Roberto Aguirre Sacasa, specifically for Netflix. Like I said, it's based on the Archie comic book, and of course it was produced by Warner Brothers Television, and also in association with Berlanti Productions again, and of course Archie Comics. So we have Aguirre Sacasa and Greg Berlanti. They were the executive producers for the show, and Sarah Sketcher and John Goldwalter and Lee Tolan Krieger. So again, the series, they focused on Kiernan Shipka, Ross Lynch, yes, the singer. He actually plays, of course, Kiernan Shipka, she actually plays Sabrina, and then Ross Lynch, he plays, Ross Lynch plays Harvey Kinkle, which is like the love interest of Sabrina for a little bit on the show. Then we also have Lucy Davis, and she plays Hildegard Antoinette Spellman, which is one of Sabrina's aunts, aka Hilda. And then we have Miranda Otto as Zelda Fiona Spellman, and Chance Perdomo as Ambrose Spellman. What I like about this show, it is very diverse, and that's all we want, that's all we need. And what is interesting is he is basically the cousin to Sabrina, and he is also a witch. But of course, if you're a male, that means you are a warlock. Then we have Michelle Gomez as Mary Wardell, and she's actually Lilith. And if you all know, like, the story behind Lilith, Lilith is actually supposed to be, like, literally the first wife of Adam. So this was before Adam even met Eve. And then later on, Lilith actually goes and kind of is with Satan, like Lucifer. And then we have Jazz Sinclair as Roz, and she is actually, and has an interesting, she has like a sight type of power where she could see the future with visions and everything. And it's a family curse with like all the Walker women in her family. And like I said, she's a seer. That's what you basically call it. And she has the power of foresight through touch. And she's basically the best friend of Sabrina. Then we have Tati Gabrielle as Prudence Blackwood, and I love this actress. I think she did an amazing job. We also have Richard Coyle. He plays Father Blackwood. Then we have Lachlan Watson. He plays Theo, and Theo is a transgender. So I like they add a lot of diversity when it comes to your sexual orientation, and as well as like your race. And Theo is a trans boy. And then we have Gavin Leverwood as Nicholas, aka Nick. But he doesn't come to like later, more in-depth, like recurring in the show, because he actually becomes Sabrina's boyfriend, like later on. So again, this show is amazing. I mean, like I said, it has a connection to Riverdale, and it actually has a connection, not really to Katie Keene. Katie Keene actually bombed a little bit. And that was just more focused on what was going on with Josie, who's the lead of the Josie and the Pussycat Dolls, to see where she was going when she reached New York. Unfortunately, this TV show actually won no awards. They were actually nominated for like a lot of awards, but they have won nothing. But what I like about the show, honestly, let me stop playing around here. What I like about the show is it literally brings out what it's like to be part of a coven, what it's like to worship Satan, basically. Sabrina, what I like about her character is, of course, yes, we have to talk about the main character. Her character is half human, half witch. And at first, she doesn't gain that acceptance from literally both sides, in my opinion, because she would go to school at a certain point in time in the TV show. She would go to school to be with like her normal human friends, but then she'll also have to go to the witch academy school that they all have to attend. So it's like literally shifting her hours in between, you know, these two identities. And it's kind of tiring and it's very frustrating because even like for the first season, like it was all about, you know, signing your name in this book and, you know, you making your commitment to the devil. So think of it as like you making your commitment to God. So that's like what it's like for them. And again, what's interesting, she starts to get more and more powerful. She starts realizing that she can't take the crap anymore, especially like these three sisters who kept antagonizing her and everyone kept making fun of her until they realized, no, she is literally like the daughter of Satan in a way. And I'm not going to spill any more tea on that, but her powers are phenomenal, and we started to see that more in season 3 because things started to get real with between this whole thing with like heaven and hell and earth, and of course earth is always caught up in between. Us humans are always caught up in between, and Sabrina, you know, having this type of relation with Satan could actually become the queen of hell, and her powers like will actually save like the rest of her people that, you know, are witches and warlocks and stuff like that. A lot of the characters, like, they did a lot of growing up, I feel, because from the first season it's been nothing but like non-stop adventure. It's like, as I discussed before with like Stranger Things of course started off a type of way, but like every season they always come out with like more and more and more and more and more, like, can you hit this level, can you hit this level, can you hit this level? And I feel like with Sabrina the Teenage Witch, it kind of stays on a steady type of pace, but it advances as well. So there's an actual article that I want to read for you all that Rolling Stone did, and it's called Sabrina Spellman and Her Cover Return for Chilling Adventures Part 4. And again, they made an announcement not too long ago, and I had to do my research to make sure it was confirmation, but this was actually updated October 26, 2020, and they said that they're canceling the show, and everyone's just like, well, are you at least going to give us like another season to end what happened in the previous season? And they said yeah, so that's what they're currently working on. And of course, like this show, like many others, you know, they had to cancel because the type of shows that we're talking about here, it literally has a huge cast and there's a lot going on where it has to have like physical appearances. So Sabrina Spellman will bring witchy justice to Greendale one last time in part 4 of The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, out December 31st on Netflix. So you heard it here, folks. Again, that's December 31st on Netflix. And they wanted to do like this New Year's Eve thing special. What's interesting is, like I said, this is where the town of Greendale is, and if you've watched Riverdale or are going to watch Riverdale, Greendale is actually mentioned in one of the episodes, and you'll see why. Actually, a few times. When we last saw the Teenage Witch, she had split herself in two. Again, there are spoilers ahead, so if you don't want to hear them, I suggest you turn this off right now, especially if you didn't see the last season. But I'm not going to go too much into it, but there is like little clips that they have right now for the TV show that you can actually watch, like mini trailers to see season 4. And what's happening in the show is, because due to what happened in season 3, it's going to reflect a lot in season 4, and it revolves around Sabrina. And I do know, because the way it ended in season 3, they're actually going to be going back probably to hell, but I'm not going to go more in detail with that, to go and save someone. So think of Parent Trap style, at least for Sabrina's situation. And keep in mind too, like, there was a lot going on in season 3 where there was kind of a mix of past, present, and future. And here's the interesting thing. Season 4 was actually filmed the same time as season 3, because we all know season 3 aired actually at the beginning of this year. But I don't know, like, they just don't want to continue with it anymore after the final season. So, what is going to happen, though, and this may just be a rumor, that HBO Max wants to take over the show. And honestly, if the rumor is true, and if they do, since it's been going around like crazy, I will be very happy, okay? Because this show it's really like one of these shows where you can actually build up a lot on it. So that's why I said I was actually surprised, like many others, that they were planning to cancel. I feel like the show just started. Because even though now we're transitioning to season 4, there's a lot of ways this show can go. And because it takes a while just closer to every season of the show that we finally get some closure, some conclusion to the TV show. And it makes you just want to start all over again now. So that's all I have for you today, folks. Again, I'm going to leave it at that with Sabrina. And again, happy Halloween. So if you wanted to be anyone from any of these 4 different TV shows, or if you wanted to binge watch any of them on Halloween night, this is definitely something that will get you in that groove and in that mood, okay? So again, thank you so much for listening, everyone. Thank you for listening to the GSMC Television Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps us. Also, if you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you, and have a good night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Television Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.